Good afternoon to our viewers and listeners on Radio Anguilla and other social media. Welcome to another government's press conference. We've had a long break of 2 weeks, but we are back here today. And I want to say a pleasant afternoon to our media colleagues present, the Anguillian newspaper, the Herald newspaper, Creative Communications, and of course our friends from DITES and Radio Anguilla. We begin with a brief prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for your blessings upon us this day. We ask that you take us through this afternoon's proceedings. We especially bring before you this afternoon all those families who are suffering at this time, families who are mourning the loss of loved ones. And in particular, we bring before you this afternoon the family and colleagues of the late Royal Hazel, a civil servant, minister, PS, and other workers at that institution. We ask for your guidance and support for them as they go through this trying time. We also think of all others who have recently lost loved ones. In particular, remember the passing of Lucille Woods on Sunday as well. We bring these before your name today. Amen. So, pleasant good afternoon once again. I'm fitting in for the premiere this afternoon. And just to remind you as well that every year the Ministry of Home Affairs publishes an official calendar of holidays for the next year. That is published sometime just after the summer. And when the new year starts, and if there are any additional holidays, we normally publish what we call an addendum. So I know there was quite a bit of confusion and uncertainty that today was a holiday. But I urge persons to use the official list of holidays that is published by the Ministry of Home Affairs as the guide. I have a few things to talk about quite quickly. And the first one, I am pleased in my capacity as Acting Premier and Minister of Labor to join with Aurora Anguilla in announcing the appointment of son of the soil Kevin Carty as the new General Manager of Aurora Anguilla Resort and Golf Club with effect from September 5 this year. I have made no secret of the fact that this administration and this Minister of Labor in particular continues to promote the elevation of Anguillians within the sector, and indeed a new and dynamic understudy policy will soon be rolled out. Kevin has distinguished himself within the sector with well over 2 decades of exemplary service, and we share in his passion for developing a strong cadre of local hospitality professionals with the capacity and drive to deliver first-class services. The government and people of Anguilla congratulate Kevin on his appointment and wish him the best as he prepares to take up his new position. So we say, well done, Kevin Carty. It's a plus for our Anguillians. We have with us the Director of Inland Revenue, Mr. Lanny Hapson, so we invite you to join us. And while he comes, there's a prepared statement from the Ministry of Finance which I wish to present to you at this time. And I will read the full text of that prepared statement, and then we will get the latest updates on the GST rollout from Director of IRD. This is the statement. This note was prepared by the Ministry of Finance with the intent to address the salient points of remarks made by Mrs. Melinda Goddard as it relates to the national budget, GST implementation, and other items related to public finances. She made the point about a proposal to cut government expenditure by 10% or 22 million EC dollars. Mrs. Goddard proposed that we can reduce expenditure by 10% while not cutting salaries and wages, thus protecting jobs. Therefore, this would exclude from personal emoluments $89 million and retiring benefits $10.4 million from the cuts. If we also exclude interest payments on debt, which is approximately $16 million, this will leave some $109 million to be subject to a cut. To obtain $22 million EC from $109 million worth of planned expenditure would necessitate a 20% cut in such areas if the cut is applied across the board. A cut this deep would produce a severe retrenchment in public services. Government has been under austerity measures since 2009, and expenditure is systematically rationalized and regular postmortems conducted on expenditure needs. Thus, there is little room for further cuts. To make further cuts would produce cuts to programs and public services. In addition, we note the proposal to increase existing taxes. Irrespective of the tax chosen, the revenue gap to be addressed remains the same, and thus would still result in tax increases of a quantum to meet the gap. GST is designed to improve fiscal resilience due to efficiencies in the administration of the tax. The comparisons between an increase in ISL, which is Interim Stabilization Levy, and GST represent a misunderstanding between a consumption tax and an income tax. Furthermore, the suggestion that GST is to be applied on rent was also incorrect. Incorrect statement that balanced budget legislative framework will solve budget deficit. Balanced budget legislation is not a revenue measure. Balanced budget legislation enshrines fiscal rules in a country's legislative framework which establishes parameters for expenditure and revenue. The simplest of these frameworks requires a positive ending balance such that revenue matches or exceeds expenditure. However, a legislative provision mandating budget surpluses does not automatically produce surpluses without actions to ensure revenue exceeds expenditure. To close a revenue gap, you need revenue measures such as increases in existing taxes or implementation of new taxes. Therefore, the proposition to remove GST and replace with balanced budget legislation would be ineffective. Incorrect statement that expenditure was cut on public assistance to fund personal emoluments, including vacations, travels, and pensions. In 2021, the budget for public assistance was EC $11.23 million, which included $7 million provision for the unemployment program. This program was concluded in September 2021 as employment levels resumed. Accordingly, this provision was removed from the 2022 budget estimates. The budgetary allocation in 2022 is EC $5.042 million. Currently, $4.03 million covers public assistance under the Department of Social Development. The public assistance budget was only temporarily increased in 2020 and 2021 due to the unemployment program, which was a temporary program. Sacrifices would have been made in those budgets to fund these programs, which were also supported by the financial assistance provided by the United Kingdom government. Incorrect statement that customs duty and surcharge was not removed for GST implementation. The implementation of goods and services tax was part of a broader reform of the international trade taxation structure for Anguilla. In 2019, the customs duty rates were reduced ahead of the implementation of GST, with the implementation of the interim goods tax IGT, which is a precursor to GST. The reform included 1, a reduction of the number of import duty rates from 8 to 4%, 2, a reduction of the effective weighted average import duty tariff, and 3, the transformation of the customs surcharge into the interim goods tax IGT. This reform was widely consulted as part of phase 1 of the GST implementation. That is the text of a statement prepared by the Ministry of Finance in regards to remarks made on the 2022 budget by Mrs. Melinda Goddard. Thank you for listening. We have been joined now by the, we have been now joined by the Comptroller of Inland Revenue, sorry, may I get your title correct? Comptroller of Inland Revenue, Mr. Lanny Hapson, and he'll give us an update as to what's happening with the implementation of GST. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Honourable Sir. Good afternoon to everyone. So I'll go ahead and give a brief presentation. This is just to give an update on the progress and where we stand right now with the goods and services tax and the rollout as the IRD is preparing for that. Just by way of a quick background, we know that GST implementation date in Anguilla, it is on schedule, and that is scheduled for the 1st of July 2022, and that is still the date for the goods and services tax. Now the department, Inland Revenue Department, we are the department responsible for the implementation as well as the administration of that goods and services tax. And speaking reference to the IRD and our preparedness, all deliverables under the goods and services tax implementation plan that the IRD originally had, we are on plan, on target to complete that implementation, as well as training in various aspects of tax administration. These were delivered to the staff at the Inland Revenue in preparation. We also worked on forms, standard operation procedures, comprehensive capacity building plans, and these were all developed so that the staff are equipped to assist with the implementation of this tax. As well as our multi-tax solution. That's our electronic system, that's our software or tool that would also help us. In addition to the manpower, we will have the multi-tax solution to guide us and assist us with the rollout of the tax. And this is also the system that is used by taxpayers to do their filings of the goods and services tax. So key activities that were completed. Regulations were passed in the House on May 27th, 2022. IRD has finalized the essential list of zero-rated and exempt supplies. We have made this available online. So if you visit the ird.gov.ai website, you will now have a copy of the regulations that were passed. These regulations are very important, especially for the supermarkets in preparation for the goods and services tax, because they will have to update the list of items in the zero-rated into their point-of-sale systems to be prepared for administering those goods. Now, development of publications and videos for taxpayer engagement. We are working on some more of those. We have some already out there. Those view on KCN network, view online, ird.gov.ai website, and the government information websites as well. GST training has been delivered to the IRD and customs staff. Now, specifically, some areas that were covered in that training, we covered GST foundation, legislation, advisory visits, registration, filing, payment and refunds, risk assessments, compliance and collections, audit, objections and appeals, stakeholder engagements, and taxpayer services, just to name a few. However, training is ongoing as well with both the IRD and the customs, and further information will be presented as well for training to brokers so they could understand further the zero-rated and exempt items that we have proposed. Some continuing activities from the Inland Revenue Department. We are continuing taxpayer engagement and education. These are ongoing and will continue to be ongoing 1st of July and onwards. We will continue that. The registration of taxable persons, even though the deadline has passed, we do encourage persons to continue to give us a call, come in, visit, to be registered, fill out, complete your forms, so we could get you properly registered. Advisory visits to register as taxpayers. So the persons who have already registered, we are now also carrying out advisory visits to those taxpayers. And again, these will be ongoing as well. And we have started some compliance action as well. So compliance action, this is taking place. Some notices of requirements to register letters would have been distributed for persons who failed to register at the due date. There has been an effective engagement with the Customs Department. This is due to finalizing for the rollout of the tax and also for the rollout of the TINs, which is the tax identification number. So it's a joint training between Customs and IRD we will have with the brokers to ensure that the tax identification numbers are updated for all taxpayers as well going forward. So again, this will be a joint exercise with the Customs and IRD, and more information will be given on that as well. So next steps for us, we're going to continue with development of consumer brochures and guides. Again, because we want to educate the consumers, empower them, to give them information on what to expect, who can charge GST, ensuring that a GST certificate is displayed, as well as requesting a proper sales receipt. And we are planning our go-live day for the 1st of July. And again, the closer we get to that date, further information will be provided on any activities that we may have planned for that day. As I mentioned earlier, regulations have passed. Specifically in the regulations, I would like to direct persons to have a view towards the end of the regulations. In Schedule 1 of the GST regulations, here is where you will find the zero-rated goods and also services that are zero-rated. In that schedule, it has a list of tables. Table 1 consists of export of goods and services. It speaks specifically to exportation. Table 2 speaks to the goods imported or supplied for the purpose of fishing and farming. So specifically to the fishing and farming industries, there are a list of goods there. Table 3, it shows goods used in the course of manufacture in Anguilla. The list of goods in the category for the manufacturing, these are subject to approval by the Ministry of Economic Development. So when you look at that, you will notice it doesn't have any list of information. However, that is being developed by the Ministry of Economic Development, and that will be provided shortly as well. And Table 5 in that Schedule 1, it has a supply of contraceptives and sanitary products, listing out all those items. Also in the regulations, on the Schedule 2, has a list of exempt supplies. And as well, under this schedule, there are a list of tables of items. Specifically, Table 1 deals with a supply of financial services. So, supply of financial services, explanation here is other than domestic financial services,